William Trotter. From the far north of Scotland to the far south of New Zealand, William Trotter was one of southern New Zealand's earliest pastoralists who immigrated to build a fortune and achieve his goals. William Sinclair Trotter was born here in Canners Bay Parish near Joanna Groats, the northernmost point of mainland Scotland, in 1816. Now this is in Caithness, a fairly desolate sort of landscape here with treeless fields and moorland, ringed with steep cliffs along its wild Atlantic coast. In the 1790s, sheep were introduced to this highland area by Sir John Sinclair, an advocate of scientific agriculture and author of the famous Statistical Account of Scotland, a 21-volume detailed survey of Scotland in this period. The coming of the sheep, Cheviots from the Scottish borders, meant the displacement of existing tenants, the beginning of the Highland clearances that led to mass migration from the Highlands to colonies overseas. William's father, Alexander Trotter, was one of the shepherds from Berwickshire in the south of Scotland who had driven the first of Sinclair's sheep north and remained with them afterwards, becoming Sinclair's overseer. Alexander Trotter married Jane or Jean Sinclair, an illegitimate daughter of William Sinclair of Freswick House. Their son William was born nearby on Greenvale Farm. His father drowned while taking a load of horses to Orkney in 1817 when William was just 1. This left his mother, a widow who seems to have lived on a croft at East Dunnet until 1867 when she died, aged 90. This is their headstone, erected by William from New Zealand. Prospects can't have been great in Caithness for William. In 1838, at the age of 21, he applied for assisted passage to Australia and set sail for Sydney on the Boyne. Now the ship's passenger list records him as a farm servant who could read and write. As he left, he wrote to his brother, encouraging him to follow him and predicting, "I'll be back in a year or two with a fortune." Australia, however, proved a disappointment. William was unimpressed by its hot climate, its convict population, and his poor economic prospects in Sydney. In early 1840, he signed a contract with Johnny Jones to join his new farming settlement at Matanaka in Otago. Travelling on board Jones's ship, the Magnet, William was put in charge of the cattle for this new enterprise near Waikouaiti. He was to be paid £38 a year with free passage and free rations, and if he stayed for 2 years, he would be granted 60 acres of land for himself. It was a good deal on paper, but like many people, William found Jones a difficult man to work for. He returned to Sydney in 1842, unpaid and with no land. He had liked Otago though, and had seen potential in the land there. He soon made a second attempt at settling in New Zealand, this time on his own account. William acquired a sheep run at Moiraki in 1851, borrowing sheep from John Jones's flocks to stock it initially. Evidently by then the two men had patched up their differences. Now this leased land inland from Kātegi Beach would be the base from which he sought to build his colonial fortune. 4 years later, he married Isabella Dalrymple in Waikouaiti. They began their married life here in a small cottage, which we think was over by those trees. And their firstborn son actually died here in 1856 and was buried up behind the cottage on a site marked by an old makarapa tree. But thereafter they had 7 more children, all of whom grew to adulthood. When the run was broken up for closer settlement in 1860, William actually bought some of it freehold, and that land is still in family hands today, still being farmed, surely one of the longest family tenures with the land anywhere in Otago. Trotter's Gorge and Trotter's Creek nearby also mark that early family connection with this area. As more land was opened up in Otago through the 1850s, William looked to expand his holdings. In 1859, he came exploring around the Wakatipu area, eventually applying for this run that he called Greenvale, after the farm that he'd grown up on in Caithness. Now, his moving of stock here from the east coast across the mountains is an epic tale of heroic proportions and enduring hardships. By 1867, he had moved his family here to Greenvale permanently, and this whole plain below Kingston is still known today as Trotter's Plain. It was challenging work droving sheep across unbroken countryside and farming with the pressures of outbreaks of scab, rabbit plagues, fires and the harsh inland climate, but William endured them all and steadily increased his land purchases all across Otago and Southland. Some land was leased, some was freehold, and further sections continued to be bought and sold as William's real estate portfolio continued to grow. From about 1874, the family lived at a property they called Roslyn here at Woodlands in Southland, and William died there in 1893. His will reveals the extent of his land holdings. They constituted a sizable estate that was passed on to his children. Having arrived in Otago early, worked hard and lived modestly, William Trotter more than fulfilled his youthful ambition to build a fortune in the colonies. He never returned to live in Caithness, though he did make a visit there during a world tour in 1881. He had played his part in the progress of his adopted country, opening up large tracts of country and developing them into profitable farms. Despite his 58 years in the colony, William eschewed any role in public affairs, focusing instead on his home and his family. He enjoyed a long and happy marriage and was a devoted and loving father. An obituary described the hard-working southern farmer as
a man of peace who never aspired to an official or representative position of any kind, while at the same time he took a deep and intelligent interest in all questions affecting the colony and his district. He was a powerful man physically and a hard worker, undoubtedly an excellent pioneer settler and an estimable man.